Hi all. I am Lynne Stiegler. I have been the head of Michael Anderle's editing consortium for the last 4.5 years. During that time, I've done personally over 1,000 books for him, most from new authors. So there are some people in the room that I've edited for, so they'll stop me if I say something blatantly false. No, Charles is like, no, I want her to edit my other one, yeah. Well, actually, Tracy edits you now. You're safe. You can say anything you want to me.
Oh, no, Mama Lynn, do not piss off your editor, first rule.
So anyway, we have a little bit of knowledge of whereof we speak. I also used to edit for Bain Books, so that was mostly copy editing because manuscripts that go into TradPub are a lot cleaner than the manuscripts that come in indie. So, but still, so I've learned a lot more with the indie publications than I did with the TradPub. So, I'm not going to wait for this any longer. I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to give this to Tim so he can put my slides for me. Tim is one of the people for whom I've had the privilege of editing.
While she's doing that, I'm Tracy Burns. I started as a freelance editor working with authors.
Just click on this mouse here, just this one here.
There you go. And then when we get ready to go to the next slide, you'll just click on the yeah.
Okay. We'll make sure everything's different.
There you go.
Welcome aboard, everyone. Tracy Burns sitting here beside Lynn. I am a freelance editor who now works full-time with LMBPN. It's been quite an interesting ride for the last year and a half, almost 2 years since I started working with Lynn and the rest of the team there. We will say that plans rapidly accelerate when you're working with an indie publisher. Yes. What you thought was your 2-year plan, 2 months. So I come at it with a slightly different background than Lynn. I started as a reader, turned into an author. I do still publish, albeit on a very slow schedule. My first experience as a freelance editor was from having an indie author ask me to edit for him. And from then it spiraled out where I kept getting more clients via word of mouth. And then eventually, with a few changes that happened, Charles brought me to Lynn's attention, and the rest has been history. It's been a wild roller coaster.
Just to clear it up, James Kaplan also did.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that, but thank you to James.
So yes. So in answer to you, how do I find an editor? You'll see on our next slide. So maybe we don't need the notes because I can't.
Yeah.
I'm blind, I'm old, what can I say?
You borrow my glasses with?
No, it won't help. Okay, so here's your word of mouth. How did I get to Michael Anderle? I had bronchitis. I read 16 of his books in 2 days sitting on the couch. Got hold of him on Facebook and said, the story in the company is, I said, great stories, but you suck. The reality was they're great stories and you need a responsible editor. And then he said, well, do you edit? And I said, well, I used to edit for Bain. And he said, well, talk to me. What he really wanted to do was fanboy over the stories of the old-time sci-fi editors from Bain. He didn't want me. But it turned out that he thought I sounded reasonable because he hated editors who basically said my way or the highway, which is if an editor ever says that to you, run fast in the other direction. So that's how, so in some sense, word of Facebook was how I got to Michael. So another way you can get editors is Upwork. There it's a crapshoot because you'll ask them references or a sample of what they do. But, who knows? I had somebody give me references for someone the other day and they were atrocious, so I don't know.
It's very much a take your chances when you're hiring without recommendations to begin with. I strongly suggest that you network at conferences like this, where you're peer-to-peer and you can get the horror stories as well as the fantastic stories straight from the authors who experienced it. That is my #1 go-to. If I want to know something about an author, or if I want to know something about who their editor is, reach out and talk to them. Most people are very open to sharing what's working and what's not.
Reedsy and Allie are your baby, so go ahead.
Reedsy Marketplace is another location where you can look for editors. I will say up front that the word on the street is they're pricey. That is not all the editor's decision. They do pay to be on that marketplace. They are vetted to an extent. How great that extent is, I do not have personal experience with, so take that for the word it is on their website and from other people who have mentioned it. ALLIE, the Alliance of Independent Authors, also lists some vetted editors on their website. It's readily available to see their brochure. You can at least get an idea of who they recommend working with.
And by the way, this PowerPoint will be up on, did she say Facebook?
Yeah.
So if you want to get the links that are in it, you can get it off of Facebook in the group.
Right.
So, yeah. And then we found a wonderful article under the Creative Pen, whom Tracy knew of the person, and how to find and work with professional editors.
Yeah. That's Joanna Penn for those who don't recognize the URL.
So, and then we already said ask for references or samples. So next, please.
What can an editor offer? That's the big question we get asked a lot, especially from those who are newer into self-publishing.
Well, there's anything from proofing, which should actually be your last step, to copy line editing, which will just get you grammar, spelling, punctuation, to developmental editing, which can go two ways. Well, no, in the real world, as opposed to the LMBPN world, that's my not real world, but it's my world, and I love it. You'll get comments from an editor saying you might want to think about taking it or this way, or that kind of thing. In our world, we rewrite it for you and say, this is why we did this. So.
The developmental editor is going to look at your story from a structure and plot point of view and say, this is working, this is not working so well, here are some suggestions. That's the non-indie publisher world. As Lynne mentioned, when you're working with LMBPN as an author, we go in and do that. It is part of our job. As a freelancer, I do that for my authors. I am a combination of dev up through proofing, and that's the way I've done it. Not all editors do all those stages.
The other thing that what was I going to say? Your beta team can do some of that for you if you form a beta team. They
Yep.
will talk to you about issues that you have, lack of continuity, plot points that won't work, that kind of thing.
Sections that dump them out of the story.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. We also do, well, you said per Reedsy editorial assessment. I'm actually not sure what Reedsy means by that, but
Generally an overview of the book, and they'll hand you back a summary of notes is my understanding, but that's not something I do a lot of, and for me that falls more under a beta read.
yeah, I would get a beta read before I'd get that. And then fact checking. We always fact check our authors. You have your Kunas French that's going to be in your next book. Well, guess what? We're going to check that. I had a woman who was writing Icelandic curses, and I checked those kind of thing. I had a book that had all kinds of fancy liquors in a bar, not all of which were alien, and I made sure that the kind of decanter it was in was correct, and that sort of thing. You should expect your editor to do that for you because you're moving fast. Yes, we expect you to do your research too, but if you want to reference the kind of bottle Macallan 25 comes in and you don't get it quite right, we should fix it for you. That's part of what we should do. Also, if you have a lot of guns in your book, you would do really well to develop a gun nut as a JIT. Because people will call you on it.
Oh yes they will, and they are ruthless when you get it wrong.
They are.
Our JIT team tags me regularly for stuff that I missed even though I thought I corrected it.
What
Yeah.
is JIT?
Just-in-time readers. It's our final proofreading. LMBPN, we have, the way we work is we have well, sometimes we accept submissions, sometimes we get word of mouth. We have a beta team that will go in and say, yes, we like this story, yes, we like it if you fix these things, oh yeah, heck no. kind of things. So, and then after the beta team, if everybody reaches a contract stage, then it goes to the editors. Then after that, it will go to the, either back to the author if they, most of our authors don't want it back after that. They just want it. Charles is like, They just want to have it go to the just-in-time team who will pick up the last-minute proofs and then it publishes. We publish 25 to 30 books a month, so we are pretty much turning in a book a day, all days, sometimes 2 or 3. Sometimes we take Sundays off. We'll just see.
Occasionally I make that Sunday a Tuesday.
Okay. Next.
What to expect from an editor from the author's side?
Well, it depends on your level as the author. It depends on whether you're experienced, in which case you may just want your editor to pick up continuity errors or tighten up the book for you. Or the proofing will generally be done at a different level than an editor because we'll talk about editorial error rate in a moment. Well, no, I'll just talk about it now. We were reading, and I have the link there on my slides, that the professional editorial error rate is 5%. Okay, my top number of errors I've ever had in a book was about 30,000 in a 70K book. That means that I can have an error rate of what? 150? No, just no. If I turned in a book with 150 errors in it, I would think I was seriously not doing my job. So I do read, I was reading Outlander the other day and there were typos in Outlander. So if no book is ever going to be error-free, don't expect your editor to be perfect. We can't be. Our minds fill things in just like everybody else's.
Right, and that's why you're also well advised to develop your own final proofing team, whether
Exactly.
it's a couple of your ARC readers who send stuff in, or it's a small dedicated team that are phenomenal at catching those last minute typos.
And want to read your books first.
And want to read your books first. It's usually a bonus if they can do that. That's an ideal relationship for you as an author because you've got that last level of checking before you hit publication.
And also the editor with an experienced author will generally make suggestions for enhancing your scenes if we can see that.
Right.
So, for novices, all of the above. You'll also get dev edit suggestions. You work with a lot of them.
Yep, I have worked with everyone from completely new to the field up through experienced authors with degrees in writing. There is always an opportunity to enhance at least one scene per book, often more than that. Many editors will ask you if you're specifically looking for that. Most of them will generally flag it if they see it, even if you haven't requested it. But that actually speaks to a relationship you're building with your editor, and that's another point we'll touch on.
Next, please. From the editor's side, well, first of all, everybody should establish the clear and contract and payment terms because you don't want any surprises down the road.
Right.
And please, please, authors, if you're going to give a manuscript to an editor, set it aside for 5 to 10 days to where you can see it again, make another pass through it, pick up all of your oopsies that you can, make it as clean as you can, because ultimately it'll save you money. The less we have to fix, the less we can charge you.
Right. And since many of us do work on a per word charge, if you're looking at an 80,000 K manuscript, it adds up quick.
It does. But we may give you a break on the rate if your manuscripts are pretty clean.
Right.
So.
It is always a good thing for us on the editor side when you turn in a manuscript and we're 10 pages in going, I love this author.
Yes.
Thank you for being clean.
Yes, exactly. You also can't just turn it over to us and vanish. We've got to be able to get hold of you at a moment's notice. Wait a minute, yes, I work all night and I'm not going to contact you at 2 in the morning, but nevertheless, I will need to know what the heck you meant by that, whatever that was, and because it may affect 3 scenes down the road. So please be able to be contacted in whatever way you stipulate.
Whether it's Facebook Messenger, a Slack channel, phone number, email, or you prefer text instead of a phone call, let us know, stick to it. If for some reason your primary method of contact changes, let us know.
And don't make us do this, make this face, because if we do, you're gonna get charged more. On the second book, obviously we're gonna have we had those payment terms on the first book.
Yes.
We prefer to get our documents in Microsoft Word. Obviously, that's whatever you and your editor agree, or you and your author, if you're an editor, agree to do, because Microsoft Word has good features for exchanging edits and corrections. So Google Docs does not. So if you're thinking that Google Docs is the way to go to do collaborative documents, please, for your editor's sake, think again.
Google Docs introduces a lot of incorrect artifacts in addition to not having the full suite of editing tools for tracking changes and leaving comments, etc., that Microsoft Word does. There are other options than Microsoft Word. LibreOffice and OpenOffice are both free programs, very similar to it. The formatting of how they lay stuff out is a little different, but you can still work with those if Word is a problem financially.
Well, it's $6.95 a month now for a personal version, so
Their subscription version is very reasonable now, and you can, if you need to, turn it off in the months you're not using it.
yeah, so $6.95 a month. If you can't do that, please shoot me an email. I will do it for you. Because you'll make your editor very happy, and I like to pay it forward.
Yes.
We also, we expect you to learn from your edits. We do a couple of things with people. One is, some of our authors, like I edit for Craig Martelle and Michael Anderle both. Michael Anderle never, ever wants to see it again. Craig Martelle says, yep, I want it back. And he goes through and does acceptances. And he doesn't just do an accept all. He goes through every edit that I make. In fact, the one time I used a new program and it took out 2,108 spaces after the paragraph. He said, Lynn, can you please turn off track changes before you do that next time? Which was my bad, but yes, sorry, Craig. But anyway, so, but he does actually look at all of them. And so he learns, and his books are better with every single book that he gives me because he pays attention to what we're saying. If we make a suggestion and you agree, please don't make the same error in book 2. Make a new and creative error. You know, don't just stick with the same ones.
Right.
You're storytellers, you can make it up.
Or as Michael is famously known for saying, we are professional liars.
Yes.
Don't repeat yourself.
Yeah.
Do something different.
Yeah.
Keep us on our toes.
Yes.
All right, here's where we get into setting firm expectations, and this is talking a little bit to your relationship between yourself and your editor.
I will generally talk to my, well, okay, in LMBPN again, it works differently. You turn the book in, and then it goes to, I assign it to an editor or to myself if it's really, really, really novice writing, and then I'll work with you. But I will establish, I had an author tell me that she hated semicolons. She gave me a book with over 100 semicolons in it. Hello. I also had an author tell me she didn't like the blah, 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 comma, then construction. Well, then don't bloody write that way, because sometimes that's the only way I can make your sentences work. Comma splices are not your friend, and they're not your narrator's friend. And most of our books, especially because AI narration is coming in, most of your books are going to end up going to audio, because that's the way people live these days, in their cars and things. And so you need to write in a fashion that can translate to audio or whatever. Okay. Editor advice.
Don't expect us to leave bad grammar, comma splices, etc. in your document. Full stop. It is anathema to us to do that. We are trying to help you present your best story possible. And trust me, there are readers out there who are grammar Nazis that will kill you in your reviews if you leave that stuff in there.
Now, we're talking about that in for the narrator. Obviously, characters can speak any way they wish to.
Right. If you tell me he's over in the holler and he's yelling at this skunk-ass coon dog, you can better believe we're gonna leave that in there. That's your dialogue.
So, and bottom line, it's your book. And you're the one who's gonna have to field Amazon when they say, we're going to take this down to you, fix these errors. Whether or not they're errors in your eyes, the readers have reported them as errors. And also, if you disagree with too many of our suggestions, the caveat is we don't have to do book 2. You may need to find another editor.
Right.
So, because we will do our best to make your book the best it can be. Obviously, it's up to you with the bottom line.
Right.
So, we've agreed we're going to do your first book.
Now we get to learn about each other. How do you want to work with your editor? How do I as an editor want to work with you? What's going to be the best way to collaborate? And what am I going to expect from your book? What are you going to expect from me once I'm done with your book? A whole lot of questions in there. What you should expect from me as an editor: comments for any corrections that are not self-explanatory. I tend to, with authors that are new to me, leave a fair amount of comments, both the first time I encounter an error, explaining why I'm translating something a different way, especially if you're new. Experienced authors, you'll see fewer comments because I'm assuming you already know the rules of the road, and all I need to do is show you the correction for you to go, oh, yeah.
Commonly used but incorrect words, phrases, meanings, constructions, things like try and. Okay, it's try to. And yes, someone in dialogue can say that, but I will generally do a global correction throughout the book because there are people that it just sets them off if you use incorrect words and phrases. Irregardless, always a favorite. I also, in my books, will take out 98% of the adverbs because they're not necessary. Oh, he was completely dead. Okay, we're not in The Princess Bride. And you don't need now, already, and oh gosh, soon, and slightly, and he limped slightly. No, he limped. My favorite phrase is Yoda's, do or do not, there is no try. But, and trying to, starting to, beginning to, he began to walk away. No, he walked away. So, yes, you might want those words for Kindle Unlimited, but if you have a responsible editor, they will take them out, because you don't need them.
One of my pet peeves, all right, with a single L to one
Oh,
word
yes.
together. No, it is not a word.
All right is not, A-L-R-I-G-H-T is not a word. It's A-L-L space, R-I-G-H-T.
And yes, that includes in dialogue.
Yes. And you can read any definition you wish. They will say that it's an informal construction in unedited documents, is what it is.
Yes.
So, and indies have a reputation for bad editing. We are trying so hard to make that not be the case anymore. Because I used to, when I was reading indies back, 10, 15 years ago, it was great, but, this needs to be edited. I can't even read this.
And with the ever-present fight against the decidedly unethical posting of books that are scraped from other material illegally, it makes us look even worse because too many people don't realize that's going on. So it's always, always in your best interest, both from a personal and professional standpoint, to get your books as clean and as easy to read as possible.
Okay, so we have done book 1 together. We should sit down and talk. What did you like? What didn't you like? How can I do it better for you? Did you learn anything from my edits?
And in turn, we're sitting down and learning what did and didn't fly for you as the author. Did I use a particular construction that's driving you insane? Is there a way we can change that? Do I need to make a note in my files that says this author hates this, loves this, we'll accept this if there's no other choice. And trust me, we do keep those notes.
We do.
It is very important to us that we understand exactly how you want your story presented so that we can do the best job. And when you're going through the acceptances, you're not sitting going, we don't want you doing this either.
We don't want to have you fortify yourself with a cup of coffee with Jack Daniels in it before you go through our edits. Well, you may do that because you're trepidatious anyway, but we don't want it to be because of us.
Right.
So,
And that brings us to another point. If you've gone through a book one with an editor and you just cannot mesh styles, stop working together. It is in neither of your best interest to continue that relationship, no matter how much you love them as a person. If you can't work together professionally and have it match, then you're going to be at loggerheads by book two, and it's just going to get worse from there.
so we found the picture we like. In the first one it says, I use semicolons instead of periods. The other dog says, I replace every dialogue verb with said. So, so those two should not be working. Okay. So how to part gracefully? What do you do if, it's not like I hate you and I never want to see your face again. It's, just say, this isn't, I don't edit romance. It's not my wheelhouse. I'm old. I have no patience with the trepidations of the young when they go, does he love me? No, who cares?
I, on the other hand, although I am not a fan of Zompok, will edit it if need be. Just don't expect me to rave over it being Zompok genre.
Zombie apocalypse?
Yes.
Ah, you've been saying that and I've been going, I just got it. Okay. Okay. I got an erotica book. Anderley was going to publish, not under the LMBPN title, but he was going to publish erotica because, there's money in erotica. Not only was it badly written, but it was not possible. I think, were you guys in the bus when we were reading that particular passage?
Yes, I remember that.
Yes. Oh my God. And I listened to a gentleman read it and it was just like, anyway. You had a question?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's pretty common in a lot of books. You get to that point and you think, whoops, done there. Because that's not possible.
Yeah, I mean, I had a wild youth and I know. So, yeah, can't do that. That hurt. And not in a good way. So anyway, and my husband, Mark Stiegler, some of you may have seen a presentation of his. He did a presentation on narrative and he did a presentation on using AI in science fiction. He insists on semicolons and colons in all the wrong places. And then I edit them out and some of them he puts back in. It's like, honey, do you want to stay married? I am your editor. I know these things and I will go back and change it before it goes to publication. Okay? So, all right. Understand what the others, that everybody's points are valid. It's your book, you see it a certain way, your points are therefore valid. I was having a conversation with Tony Weisskopf of Bain Books yesterday, who started me out in my editing career 30 years ago. And I was saying in LMBPN, we don't need no stinking commas. If it's my brother Gregory, comma, Gregory, comma, blah, blah, blah. We don't use those offset commas because I don't need you to pause there. Okay, that a comma is a pause, that's what it is. She said, well, you're wrong, but okay.
Another reason for parting gracefully, hopefully gracefully that is, schedules don't mesh, life changes happen for you or your editor or both of you. Hopefully they're good changes, but we all know that life does happen unexpectedly. It's another reason where you might need to terminate the working relationship. And again, no hard feelings on either side. It's just one of those things that happens. If you can, work with each other. Your editor may be able to put you in with another editor that they could recommend. Or, you know, if for some reason your editor needs to cancel the relationship but says, you know, 6 months down the road, there may be another opportunity either for you to go in or for someone you know to work with your editor.
So,
And again, that goes back to the word of mouth networking. Help each other if you can.
it's a very small community.
It is, truly.
Okay, our last slide before questions is tips and tricks. Repetitive errors, we will always tell you about repetitive errors that you make. I generally put, if really there are a lot of them, I'll put a block up at the top before chapter 1 and say, I have found X, Y, and Z. Here are the globals. You need to fix these if you choose to fix them. I did not fix them because I know that's your style, but I would suggest you do, kind of thing. And then your editor should be catching multiple paragraphs starting with the same word. I had 5 paragraphs in a row starting with the character's name. No.
Do you enjoy getting hit over the head with a hammer? Because that's exactly what it's going to feel like to the reader when you do that.
Yeah,
And the more you do it, the harder the hammer hits.
that's right. Writing style that won't work for audio. Imagine the person in the traffic jam, horns are blaring around them, and they're trying to follow some convoluted sentence that is a masterpiece of literary craft, but needs attention to follow it. Let's put it that way. You don't want your readers saying, wait, what? Because they can't go back up to find out what you said 3 paragraphs ago that makes sense. So make sure that and again, I really see audio as the future of a number of books, because the AI, we've listened at LMBPN to a number of AI readings, and they are getting good. They are really getting good. So, now they did make Michael Ander's son, but aside from that. Okay.
They're not perfect yet, but getting closer. Dictation. A lot of authors are dictating more and more, turning to it. It is an effective way to write your stories quickly. However, it inserts a lot of errors. Homonyms, odd punctuation,
Missing words, added words.
Yep.
So, you know, we have taught, T-A-U-G-H-T versus T-A-U-T. That's a common one. When you have a rifle sight versus a work site, that's a common one. Console, the console of, you know, in an embassy versus a console kind of thing. You have to be extremely careful. And honestly, your choice is to dictate. I would expect you after your 5 or 10 day pass to go through and try to catch as many of those as you can, because the more your editor has to, especially missing prepositions is a big one.
Yes.
Into conjunctions, missing. I have one editor that dictates almost, well, he does dictate exclusively, and I have a proofreader go through his work first, because I'll miss him because I have to go too fast.
Alright. We did cover that many editors charge per word, and you can reduce your cost again by going through cleaning up your manuscript to the best of your ability. I will say, when it comes to incorrect words or overusing words, the thesaurus is your BFF. Make friends with it, love it, it'll love you back. I can't tell you how many times I have changed, slammed into something else, slammed into a third thing in one paragraph.
And please don't say flying through the air. It's very hard to fly through water.
Or the ground.
Or the ground. So I had one author where I took out 5,000 words, and I swear 90% of them were through the air or in the air.
Yes. Going back to reinforce another point, neither side of your editor-author relationship should be the control freak. We understand that the author has the final say, but it is very much a collaborative effort to get your book to market. And then finally, if you or the editor have a question about anything in the manuscript, anything in your working relationship, ask.
Never
We're not
hesitate.
mind readers.
Yeah, never hesitate to ask.
Yeah.
We hope you ask. Please.
Right, I would far rather have my inbox filled with 15 questions in a row from my author going, wait a minute, what? I didn't understand that. What do you think about, should I do this instead? And answer them, than have someone sitting there wondering. That's not an effective use of either of our time. If I have an answer, I will give it to you. If I don't know an answer, I will look it up or point you in the direction where you can do the research as well.
Okay.
And there we have it. Over to you.
First of all, thank you. If I want to write a synopsis instead of just a whole story and send it to an editor, does that make sense in case there are any development edits to start with just, 2-3 pages of the story and then craft it?
That would more be a beta issue, I think, or an alpha reader,
Okay.
if you have an alpha reader.
I would say more of an alpha reader, although there are some editors out there who will take a look at that for you. And that's a little bit more of a review than an actual edit. But yes. Yep, back here in the tiara.
I still think we need to have the TRs Unite meeting tonight.
Does it count that mine are on my feet?
Oh, definitely. Hey, I've got them on my feet too.
Okay.
What do you think about an author using, not in place of the editor, but doing some of that cleanup you're talking about, something like Grammarly or Co-Writer's Aid, that kind of thing?
We're glad you asked.
Very glad.
Grammarly is about 50% right. Okay, let me tell you the way that I edit specifically. I do mark one eyeball in combination with Grammarly running in the sidebar. That makes me look at two different things when I'm looking at any given sentence. After I get all the way to the bottom, I go back up through Grammarly backward with whatever it's pointing out to me for two reasons. One is I might have missed something the first time, and second is when I'm going backward through the document, my eye catches different things. And I find that I do some cleanup that way. The third thing I do is a program called Perfect It. Perfect It is not a grammar checker or anything else. What it does is it catches consistency. Have I hyphenated it here and not here? Have I capitalized it here and not here? It also catches missing quotes. And gosh, I forget what else it catches, but it's really useful. It takes about 20 minutes to run it on an 80K manuscript. And so it's just really useful to me as an editor because quotes are, well, no, it doesn't catch missing periods at the end of sentences.
I've had it flag it a couple times, but not on a consistent basis.
Yeah, none of them are perfect.
Right.
Right.
I'm using a thing that's called Pro Writing Aid.
Yep, I'm familiar with it. It's
Oh,
excellent.
and by the way, finally is the spell check after
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
Pro Writing Aid is comparable to Grammarly in finding passive voice. Those programs are both very good at doing that. So if you have a tendency to write passive voice, expect a lot of flags.
Yes.
The two programs do not always agree with each other on which version is correct. I have encountered that several times.
If one of our fellow editors here, Judah Rain, was here, she would be saying also use Smart Edit. Smart Edit will catch repetitive usages.
The Pro Writing Aid does that too.
Okay,
It
okay.
does several things.
I have it, I've actually never used it.
I would suggest it maybe on a short story or something to try it, because I was amazed it caught missing spaces. I started typing when I was 14. Back that far ago, it was 2 spaces after every
Right.
period. It catches, and I'm much better now than I was. But, it'll still catch those odd ones. It catches,
Perfected catches those too.
Yeah. All of the major
catches
programs do.
repeated words, it catches inconsistencies. But it gives you options, like if you've written it one way and you want it to sound that way, you can ignore it and move on, but it does give you some suggestions and stuff that
Mhm.
are really good.
Most of the major programs do that, so In some part, it comes down to your preference, which you can work with easier,
Right.
but none of them are perfect.
But don't use any of these while you're working. Use them and after that 5 to 10-day interval. Yes, ma'am.
I've heard some conflicting advice about sending out samples. And so I tried this and made a spreadsheet, sent out like 10 samples to 10 editors and got them back, thinking I would have some sort of consensus. I was more befuddled after I got my samples back than before.
Yes?
So
Yes.
because I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So I've heard one person say to me, put some mistakes in your sample that you send so you can see if they caught those. But then by the same token, I've also heard, no, don't do that because that's not representative of what your work really is. So your quote you'll get is not accurate either because they'll think you don't know any better of your, or two, and two.
I would send your real work.
Send the real work. Okay. I've also heard, don't send the first intro chapter because you've probably already gone over that a million times. Just send something in the middle.
Send it anyway.
So you prefer the first part, the first chapter, the intro to the story. Okay, thanks.
Somebody? Go.
Yes, you mentioned you wouldn't edit dialogue if it's got improper grammar.
Right.
But what about a narrator? Was you trying to?
Oh, the narrator, absolutely. Unless it's first person point of view.
Yeah.
But even then, I'll correct their grammar. I just will let them use looser words, slang, that kind of
Maybe
thing.
it's their style, like run-on sentences, or
No,
No.
couldn't do
no, no,
No.
no.
Again, remember, we edit with audio in mind, and your readers are reading, a lot of them hear it as even when they're reading on an e-reader or a paperback.
Yeah, I read in my head as I'm reading, and I read about 3,000 words a minute, so that's very fast voice going. You know, it's the one in the. But anyway,
What about made-up words?
that's fine. Yeah.
About how long would it take you to edit a 50,000 word manuscript? Like timing on how long you suspect your editor to hold on to your document?
I'm going to let Tracy answer that because I used to edit a book a day. I'm very fast.
It depends on your editor. Some are very quick at editing, like Lynne, who is phenomenally quick. I don't think I've ever met anyone who edits faster. Others take more time.
Strangely, after COVID, I don't anymore. I take 2 days to do a book that I used to do in a day.
Right, whereas I used to take 7 to 10 days to do a book, and now I often turn it around in 3 or 4. Different story entirely.
But that's LMBPN's publishing cycle too. What is your publishing cycle? How much leeway do we have?
Right. When you're working with a freelance editor, it is not unreasonable to expect anywhere from 1 week to 2 weeks on a 50,000 word document, depending on how they're slotted in and exactly how in-depth they have to be working on your manuscript. Something that requires heavy editing will take more time just by the nature of the beast.
Yeah. Oh.
Me?
Yeah.
What would an author expect to pay an editor? What's the industry standard rate?
There isn't one. That's the answer. There is one. There's an Association of Independent Publishers or Independent Editors, and I sure wish I was getting paid what they say.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I would expect to pay less than a penny a word to have it edited by, and depending on the editor themselves. LMBPN starts at 1/2 cent a word, and then it has to be reviewed until we get to know you, and it can go straight to our JIT team, and then it gets up higher than that. But we rely more on bonuses and things. But then again, we're more or less on salary in some sense because you know where your next book is coming from. For somebody that's independent, I'd say 0.007, 0.008, something like that. And they may choose not to work for that. They may say 1 cent a word. I've had people tell me 3 cents a word. That's what you get to write. Thank you very much. That's not editing.
All right, we have another hand raised back there.
You.
Yep, you.
So you all said to ask for recommendations. Do you all know of any editors that you recommend?
I don't have any names in my hat bucket at the moment. Part of what I'm doing at this conference is connecting with other editors and finding out who's doing what. I came into it more or less as a lone wolf and had stayed that way for probably 2 or 3 years. So you're really at your better bet at this point is to talk to other authors. Who are you using? Are you happy with them? Would you recommend them? And just start writing a list of names and keep it in your back pocket.
And you can probably do that in the 20Books forum as well, by the way.
Yes.
There's a service link for service providers in 20Books.
Yes,
Okay.
there is.
Crystal does do proofing and editing back there?
Oh, me?
Yeah, you. So, you have a question?
Yeah, do you have any suggestions for somebody writing their first novel as far as like, I'm not even sure if I'd be making my money back or not, or if I'm even, would connect with the kind of readers that I'm looking for. Is there like a level of editing that you maybe say for a first-time author versus somebody who's like has a successful series or something?
If you do not edit to a professional standard on your first book, you will not make it back. You will not have a second book. Well, you won't have readers. My first suggestion is don't quit your day job. And my second suggestion is do the best you can to make it a professional novel. Because otherwise you just won't have repeat customers.
If you're unsure at the point that you're at the point for a formal edit, then I recommend trying to do reader swaps with other authors in your genre. Have them go through your manuscript, find out, flag, hey, this worked for me, this didn't work for me, I'm seeing a lot of this kind of thing going on that you might need to fix, and you in turn do the same with their story. I was reading through it, chapter 5, this paragraph threw me right out of the read. Once I got back into it, it was okay, but that spot's a problem. Those are the kinds of things that you can do with an author-to-author swap of manuscripts.
Or if you can find alpha readers, and there are some of the JIT team did an how to find alphas, betas, that kind of thing. Presentation, you might want to look up that presentation. They talked about that.
I would suggest starting there if you're not sure you're at the point of edits or if the finances are a concern. Peer-to-peer swaps are always a good place to start, and then go into your professional editing stage and go from there.
Yeah.
Are there any books that you recommend for us learning better how to self-edit? Like I got one that was called The First 5 Pages.
I always start editing books and never finish them. I don't know. One of my favorite books on grammar is Deluxe Transitive Vampire.
That author actually has several books that are extremely helpful on different topics.
Yes, and it's not only entertaining, but it's useful. So I used to volunteer teach reading literacy, and I would have my students use that because it would make them laugh while they were learning. So, yeah.
What was the name of the book again?
The Deluxe Transitive Vampire. Karen something? Yeah, anyway.
You have to pull up the name.
Yeah, I'd have to pull it up. But there's only one book called The Deluxe Transitive Vampire. There's also The Transitive Vampire, but you want the Deluxe Transitive Vampire.
Yes.
So, but she's, as Tracy said, she has many books on the topic. So. All right, I think we're done. And if you have any other questions, come up and see us. We have another presentation on clarity of narrative after this.